It's not like California doesn't know how to regulate. Oh, they know. They know. We are the most regulated state in the nation with more than 395,000 regulatory restrictions. It is a constant nightmare of inspectors and permits and fees. In this state, if you get to your car 10 seconds after the parking meter expires, it's already gone and you'll never see it again. And listen, I don't have some personal vendetta against almonds. They're just not more important than the entire ecosystem of California. So when I hear that our state grows 81% of the whole world's almonds, the world's thirstiest crop, while our reservoirs run dry and giant fires burn out of control, I have a few questions, starting with what the fuck? This is life and death.
Maher is still going after California's Governor Gavin Newsom, criticizing him for what he sees as abandoning California while quietly chasing presidential ambitions. Even though Newsom hasn't officially announced a run, many believe he's positioning himself for the White House once his term as governor ends. But Maher argues that dream needs to be put on hold until Newsom brings himself back to the political center. His takedown was sharp, relentless, and unapologetically brutal. So go ahead, hit subscribe, and let's dive in.
Did a real California thing and banned business travel from any of its state employees to any state in America where the laws about gender identity and expression weren't up to California standards, forgetting that no one is ever up to California standards. Which meant that any Cali state worker, from congressman to college football coaches, weren't allowed to visit on business half the country, evil totalitarian police states like Iowa. But Tony Atkins said, having grown up lesbian in the South, I know from personal experience growing up in a rural community where it is more conservative, that the way to change people's minds is to have direct contact. Polarization is not working. So last year, California repealed the ban. We can trade with Ohio again.
California, often described as the epicenter of the modern woke movement, made a bold move by cutting off business ties with states that don't align with its political values. Under Governor Gavin Newsom's leadership, the state projected a sense of moral authority, as if it stood on higher ethical ground than much of the rest of the country. The message seemed simple: agree with us, or face exclusion. But ideological gatekeeping has consequences. You can't isolate yourself from more than half of America and expect your economy, influence, and credibility to stay untouched. Markets don't function on moral posturing, they thrive on cooperation, trade, and shared benefit. By turning governance into what feels like a loyalty test, California risks weakening its own stability. What was presented as a principled stand is increasingly being viewed as self-imposed isolation. And over time, the damage could far outweigh any short-term political gains.
And finally, new rule, you can't call it a drought if it happens all the time. In a story I'm getting tired of reporting, California is running out of water, and this time, just when we started showering again. 19,000 acres of forest have already burned this year, and 72% of the entire West is in severe drought. Turns out hot girl summer is for reals. The Bay Area was just placed under a water shortage emergency with mandatory restrictions. Except here's the thing, there isn't, even with the drought, really a water shortage problem. It's more a where the water is going problem. California agriculture accounts for 80% of our water use, even though California agriculture is less than 2% of our economy.
Next, Bill Maher shifted his focus to the wildfires that devastate California year after year, leaving entire neighborhoods destroyed and lives turned upside down. According to Maher, the core issue isn't a shortage of water production or harvesting, it's the mismanagement of the water the state already has. He argues that the real breakdown happens at the leadership level, where preparation takes a back seat to political performance. So when fires inevitably break out, Reservoirs are critically low, and firefighters are left battling massive infernos without the resources they desperately need. In his view, this isn't just a natural disaster, it's a preventable failure. Maher believes this reflects a broader pattern of incompetence, pointing directly at Governor Gavin Newsom's leadership. To him, it's not about nature being unpredictable. It's about leadership being unprepared, ineffective, and unwilling to face the consequences of its own decisions.
We have enough water. We just give way too much of it to farmers who get their water subsidized by the government because we still act like it's 1890 and farmers are small and independent when they're really mostly part of big ag. Old MacDonald is now E-I-E-I-O Incorporated. And corporations get what they want in America. We have spent the last 2 decades in perpetual drought here, yet almond farmers in California have doubled in that time. Despite the fact that almond production alone uses more water than all the humans and businesses in San Francisco and Los Angeles combined.
Now here's where things get even more interesting. More than 80% of California's developed water supply goes to agriculture, and a huge portion of that is used to grow almonds. Yet the almond industry represents less than a quarter of the state's total economic output.
Think about that.
In a state constantly warning about drought, water shortages, and conservation, one single crop consumes an enormous share of its most vital resource. Naturally, that raises serious questions about priorities. Why would a state facing recurring water crises allow such an imbalance? Why is a resource critical to public safety, firefighting, and daily life so heavily concentrated in one sector? To many critics, it creates the impression that lobbying power and political favoritism may be shaping policy more than practical necessity, leaving everyday residents to deal with the consequences.
Look at this chart of how much water it takes to grow different crops. Oranges, tomatoes, strawberries all take about 11 gallons to make 1 pound. Almonds, 1,900 gallons. That wasn't a problem back when it rained, but now there simply isn't enough water to go around, and we have to make a painful choice, getting it to the people or getting it in the nuts.
Yes, when faced with the painful choice between directing water to people or preserving massive almond farms, critics argue that California, under Gavin Newsom's leadership, appeared to side with almonds. That's the perception gaining traction that agricultural interests are being prioritized over homes, communities, and livelihoods. While residents deal with water restrictions, rising utility bills, and the constant threat of wildfire devastation, massive amounts of water continue flowing into large-scale farming operations. To critics, it feels like ordinary people are being asked to sacrifice while powerful industries remain protected. When reservoirs run low and neighborhoods burn, people don't just see bad luck, they see priorities exposed. Whether that perception is fully fair or not, it's fueling frustration across California and strengthening the belief that leadership decisions have played a role in the state's growing crises.
And listen, I don't have some personal vendetta against almonds. They're just not more important than the entire ecosystem of California. So when I hear that our state grows 81% of the whole world's almonds, the world's thirstiest crop, while our reservoirs run dry and giant fires burn out of control, I have a few questions, starting with what the fuck? This is... This is life and death.
And honestly, that's something that would concern anyone. How does a state appear to prioritize almonds over its own residents, communities, and fragile ecosystem? To critics, it signals a deeper issue, one where economic interests and political strategy seem to outweigh common sense and public welfare. When residents are urged to conserve water while large agricultural sectors continue operating at full scale, the contradiction becomes impossible to ignore. From this perspective, California looks like a state struggling with misplaced priorities, and the consequences are becoming more visible. Infrastructure is stretched thin. Public trust is declining. Frustration is growing louder. Bill Maher's warning goes beyond policy debates. He's pointing to political reality. If voters begin linking Gavin Newsom to failed priorities and preventable crises, that perception could follow him, casting a long shadow over any presidential ambitions he may pursue.
Almonds are just not crucial. No one has a t-shirt that says, "Don't talk to me till I had my almonds." They're fine in salads or in a gift basket for someone you don't really care about. And an almond joy is nice to have, but it's really just a Mounds bar with tits. There will still be almonds in the world, even if they're not grown in places that never get rain. If we can direct coal miners in West Virginia to another line of work because coal is killing us, we should be able to tell almond farmers, you can't grow almonds where they don't grow anymore.
Bill Maher's point raises a provocative question. If a state like West Virginia could significantly scale back coal mining, an industry that defined its economy for generations, then why can't California rethink how it distributes one of its most precious resources, water? Leadership ultimately means making tough decisions and setting priorities based on long-term sustainability, not short-term economic comfort. Gavin Newsom and his administration have the authority to adjust water policies, rebalance distribution, and ensure reservoirs remain prepared for emergencies and environmental stability. Critics argue that even redirecting a portion of agricultural water toward public infrastructure could strengthen California's resilience against droughts and wildfires. Failing to address the imbalance, they say, sends the message that powerful industries can continue unchanged while everyday residents carry the burden.
It's not like California doesn't know how to regulate. Oh, they know. They know. We are the most regulated state in the nation with more than 395,000 regulatory restrictions. It is a constant nightmare of inspectors and permits and fees. In this state, if you get to your car 10 seconds after the parking meter expires, it's already gone and you'll never see it again. California has rules about every nitpicky thing you can imagine. If you don't believe me, try parking in Santa Monica.
That's what makes the contradiction stand out. California is widely known as one of the most heavily regulated states in the country, with strict rules covering everything from construction to environmental compliance. Bill Maher even joked that when he tried to replace his garage door, he had to navigate a maze of permits, inspections, and approvals before the job could be completed. His story perfectly captured how deeply regulation is embedded in the system. So it raises an obvious question. If the state can exercise that level of control over something as routine as a garage door, why not apply similar oversight to water allocation? Why not regulate agricultural production, including almonds, to ensure water is directed where it's most urgently needed, especially during droughts and emergencies?
In a park in Beverly Hills, or ride a bicycle, or climb a tree. But for 30 years, Nestle took water out of the San Bernardino National Forest under a permit that expired in 1988. And Coca-Cola is somehow allowed to take water from municipal water supply, stick it in bottles, and sell it back to the taxpayers who own the water to begin with. 395,000 regulations, but somehow that slipped through the cracks?
Bill Maher also highlighted another uncomfortable reality. California often presents itself as one of the most regulated states in the nation, yet major corporations continue operating despite serious violations. He pointed to companies like Coca-Cola and Nestle, suggesting that even in a system packed with rules, enforcement doesn't always live up to the rhetoric. And it's not just about bottled water. There have been devastating infrastructure failures as well. In some cases, aging power lines that should have been replaced remained in service, eventually sparking catastrophic fires that destroyed entire communities. That's what frustrates critics the most. On paper, California has layers of regulations designed to prevent harm. But in practice, those protections don't always translate into real-world results. Maher's question is simple yet powerful. What's the point of strict regulation if it fails to stop preventable disasters?
It just loves to be up everybody's ass all the time. Water management might be a better place to direct that instinct. I mean, where is the heavy hand of government when you need it? Californians can live without nuts. Just ask Caitlyn Jenner.
At the end of the day, one reality stands out. People in California can live without almonds, but they cannot live without water. Water isn't just for drinking. It's essential for cooking, sanitation, agriculture, public safety, and maintaining a livable environment. It's a resource the state manages and charges residents for, which creates a direct responsibility to prioritize it wisely. Yet a significant portion continues flowing toward almond farms and industry that, while economically important, doesn't directly impact the day-to-day survival of millions. From a common-sense standpoint, prioritizing citizens, emergency preparedness, and infrastructure would seem logical. Keeping reservoirs full, protecting communities, and sustaining ecosystems should come first. Redirecting water toward the people who depend on it isn't just practical, it's a moral and civic imperative. And with that, we wrap up today's video. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe for more bold political commentary like this. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.